He even said back in 2006 when he was a senator, leadership means the buck stops here. I therefore intend to oppose the effort to increase America's debt limit. He voted against it. He didn't want to do it. And so I'm agreeing with him right now. We cannot raise that debt limit. You know what's going to happen? Moody's, S&P, the economic rating agencies are going to just continue to downgrade the U.S. Never before in America's history has a rating, quality rating of the U.S. been downgraded until this year. And it's going to be downgraded again if we're not careful. $776 billion of U.S. securities are bought by governments, banks overseas to finance this deficit. $12 billion each month in interest goes to foreign governments. $12 billion every month out the door. And what country gets the most of it? China. It's outrageous. $12 billion that should be going for national defense, for justice. How about back into the pockets of the people? How about to businesses that need to expand? President Obama's new budget, $7.2 trillion in new debt he's asking for. 40 cents out of every dollar now is going to service the debt in some way. And we're seeing the dollar keeps lowering. And then we had the thing with the Federal Reserve. Now, how many of you have heard of the Federal Reserve System? Most of you have. Okay. Without getting complicated, one of the things the Federal Reserve System does, which I think is wrong, is they increase the money supply. And in increasing the money supply, the value of the dollar goes down, right? And prices begin to rise. Well, this is an example of going on with a budget deficit, higher money supply in circulation. The second part of it is $600 billion that the Federal Reserve just dumped into the system called QE2. All this increases what? Prices. Have you gone and bought some clothes? Have you gone and bought some food? Wherever you go, you're finding prices are rising. The next part of prices rising is going to be at restaurants. What was it? Yeah. What is it? I think it's Taco Bell. Just analyze all the rising costs and how they're going to have to pass on. And no businessman wants to raise prices in a recession, but at some point you go out of business. So we get these higher prices from the government policies. How many of you think that rising prices in the U.S. is what the United States government says? The United States government says it's 2%. Who believes that? No? How many believe it's 4%? Maybe 4%. How many would say maybe it's 6? A lot more 6. How many 8? Yeah. And how many 10? 10 or more. You know what? Certain areas it is 10 or more. Private economists are all saying it's between 8 and 10. This is not the official record, but this is what you experienced every day. Now, if you have to pay more for clothing and food and all the other things that you buy at the store every time you go, what does that mean? Whether you're on a pension, or whether you're an owner of a store, or whether you're an employee, you're getting poorer and poorer and poorer and poorer. It's the most immoral tax ever imposed by mankind, called inflation. Because you're losing value. You're making less for the amount of money that you're getting because your dollar is shrinking in value. That's what we have now. Now, we've had this in the past, and it's been able to be corrected. I'll talk about that in a second. right now, we have high unemployment and we have high inflation, which is called stagflation. We are living in a period now of stagflation. Under a normal recession, the unemployment would not be this high. Under a normal economy, rising prices would not be this high. We are in an economic crisis. And that's why it's time now for the Federal Reserve to control and audit what they're doing as part of what needs to be done. Because it's out of control. Now, stopping the historic one, spending. Remember, what happens with this is it's killing jobs through new job creation. We've lost 1.9 million jobs. Unemployment officially is at 9%, but you know people who are working part-time, you know people who have given up. It's probably closer to 18%. California, in this district, is even higher. In California, we're the 49th worst state for unemployment. And it reduces income and capital for a better life. And it sucks money from producers to government and destroys entrepreneurship and innovation and new technology and economic growth. This has to stop. The second step in being able to turn the economy around, and what I want to do as your congressman, is to be able to cut overspending. You know, federal spending keeps going up. The deficit rises to 1.6 trillion here. Here it was 450 billion. Here it was 350 billion. Look at the difference. Is that outrageous? It's because of overspending. And with that, you see a growth in government. There's going to be 200,000 new jobs by government jobs by 2018. Those aren't private jobs. 20% growth rate of the IRS. And big government is wasting money. Government does not produce productive jobs that create wealth. Yeah, they don't manufacture, they don't produce wealth. The great thing about the free enterprise system is that you can produce something. You can have an idea and run with that idea and produce wealth. Amen. But government can't do that. Opportunities with free enterprise, but government workers, there's a function for government, and that needs government workers, but then there's government workers that are actually sucking money out of the private sector that needs to go for job creation. The stimulus is a great example. I don't know if you believe when President Obama said that he saved or made a certain amount of jobs with the stimulus. But if I use the figures that he used, if I accept President Obama's figures, on the $787 billion stimulus, what that amounts to is $393,500 per job. This is not a way to run an economy. It's not the way you operate a free society. Step 3 is control bureaucratic waste and fraud. Do you realize there was $125 billion in improper payments? That's money sent out to people who shouldn't have ever received it. And $200 billion in overlapping bureaucracy. You know what happens is this. They pass this bill, and then they pass this bill, and they pass this bill. And so they set up this bureaucracy and this bureaucracy and this bureaucracy. There's guys doing the same thing. They keep growing their bureaucracies and having more employees and more power. They're all doing the same thing. They discovered 80 transportation programs that were doing the same thing. 56 more financial literacy doing the same thing. 44 federal job training efforts doing the same thing. That's your tax money at you that work. Somebody's got to say enough is enough. Politicians don't get it. They never had to make a payroll. They never, you know, what I've had to do is I've created jobs. I've been through recessions. I've been times where I haven't been able to pay myself so I can pay my employees. I've had to make tough decisions. Somebody has to go to D.C. and start saying things have to be accountable and you got to make tough decisions. Thank you. Now, you need to control the bureaucratic waste. You probably have heard some of these things. Your tax money at work, listen to this, $175 million to maintain unused buildings, $35 million to non-existent medical clinics, $3 million to play online video games, $2.5 million for a Super Bowl commercial, $1.8 for a neon sign museum, $1 million for environmental poetry at zoos, $700,000 studying methane gas emission from cows. And you know, if there's any Grateful Dead people here, you like Grateful Dead?
I hate to interrupt you, but
yeah.
But I want to know, is this, are you talking about California or is this?
That's nationwide.
Nationwide.
Yep, nationwide.